Hello, fellow orchid lovers. It's Danielle here. I'm sorry I haven't posted lately. I know my last video I said I was going to try to do better and talk to you more frequently, but life kind of had other plans for me. So I shared with you in my last video that my dog had passed away. Back at the end of July, he developed sudden onset lymphoma symptoms, and within 4 days he was gone. So I'm still dealing with that loss. And on top of that, unfortunately, a few weeks ago, another one of my dogs passed away. And so it's been pretty hard for me to even take part in life. I've been kind of neglecting my plants, and I've definitely been neglecting you, and I apologize for that. But I wanted to just kind of try to keep myself occupied, so I figured I'd take you on a tour of the grow room and answer some of your questions from the last video. Many of you were very kind and offered your sympathies to me during that video on the comment section, and I really appreciate that. And I did ask for questions and I got a few, so I'd like to go over those, and then I'll just try to give you a quick update on what's going on in the grow room. So the first question that I noticed was from Jean Brown, and she wanted to know what these are, why my plants have coverings on them. So I have a really bad algae problem in my collection. For some plants it's not a problem, they don't really care, but for some plants they do care. And so I came up with this solution just to kind of give a little extra layer of shade to the water. My water is well water, so there's no chlorine in it. So there's nothing there to kind of keep the algae at bay. And also I have a lot of light in this room, and algae loves light. So we have a combination there that makes it difficult to keep them under control. And some of my plants it will actually kill. Like my Vanda hates algae. Its roots will die if there's a lot of algae on the roots. And so I have to keep that under control. So as you can see, the mask is a dark color. It does still let some light through, but it does cut down on it enough that I'm able to kind of keep the algae under control. I actually have to put this plant in a bigger vase because she's outgrowing this. Every week I take her out to change her water and clean her roots to make sure that the algae doesn't linger. And it's harder and harder each week to take her out of the vase. So we're gonna have to come up with a larger solution for her soon. The other question came from Sharon Holmes. She wants to know what kind of fertilizer I use. I did post a fertilizing video about a year ago, and I haven't remade it because nothing's really changed. I use a calcium nitrate as my main fertilizer. I don't have a particular brand that I use, it's just a calcium nitrate. And I supplement that with an MSU fertilizer because the calcium nitrate doesn't have those micro and macro nutrients that plants need. So I actually use First Raise MSU fertilizer, but I don't fertilize at really high levels. I fertilize very weakly every time I water my plants, which is once a week. I also use seaweed extract supplements. I have two. I have K-Lite, and then I also have one by Blue Planet. And I kind of alternate using those products because I found when I use them too close together or at the same time, it did tend to make some of my blooms mutated. So I try to just kind of spread out the use of that. And I also have a CalMag supplement that I will occasionally add to the water. So that's my fertilizing routine. And then Benjamin Greeno, I believe, asked about my lighting situation. So I do get a fair amount of light through this window. I actually had to put up a second layer of sheer curtain because a few things were starting to get singed now that it's winter and the light is actually stronger through the window because the sun has dropped. So it used to be like up and then the light would kind of come through the window like this, and now it's kind of there and it comes through much stronger. So I had to put up a second sheer curtain to kind of cut down on that direct sunlight. As you can see, a few of my leaves got a little bit more yellow than I'd like. But I also wanted to change the way my plants were growing, because whenever a plant has a primary source of light and not that much ambient light, it has a tendency to grow crooked. So all my new growths, you can kind of see with this actually. This is my Atroviolacea. They grow that way instead of up. So I don't really want that to happen. I'd rather have straight growths. And so I decided to incorporate growing strips that would give the plant not just light coming through the window, but also more ambient light. And it seems to be working a lot. Most of my growths are going straight up now instead of towards the window. And also the same thing with the spikes. So like you can see with my Phalaenopsis spikes, which a lot of them are in spike right now, they're growing up instead of straight towards the source of light, kind of like this one is. This one's growing towards the window and towards that light strip because it senses the light that way. Whereas if it was up here on this shelf, the spike would have more of a tendency to go up before it arched over. So that's why I decided to add the extra lights. And then also my Phalaenopsis used to be on this shelf, but as my collection expanded, I had to find a different spot for them. And over here, I felt like they weren't getting quite enough light. And so I added some strips. So I actually have quite a few at this point. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over by the Phalaenopsis. And then I have the 5 up there. I have 2 on that shelf, and then another 4 on this lower shelf. So the Cattleyas get a fair amount of light through this window, but then they also have the supplementary lights, and I'll show you what they are. I got them from Amazon. They were relatively inexpensive. It's Barina LED grow lights, and they're a full spectrum light. You can see 10 watts. You can see what kind of power they put out. And I found that they give a good source of light, but they're not burning my plants. So that's good. I mean, if the tips of the plants get too close to the light, they might turn a little yellow, but they're not burning anything that's lower, which is important to me. And I can tell too that they actually do put out a good spectrum, because this is my curvifolium. It's getting the spots that show that it's getting the right light levels. So that's my grow light situation. So as you can see, I do have a few things in bloom, not a ton. I only have 2 Phalaenopsis in bloom right now, and those are actually extensions of spikes that have been around for a while that they just keep extending. But when my second dog passed away, my husband and I kind of ran away. For 2 weeks, we went down to Florida, and I turned off the supplementary heat in here because I don't like to have supplementary heaters running when I'm not home. I just always have this like huge fear that there's going to be a fire. So the temperatures at night got down into like the high to mid 50s, and that actually triggered a lot of spikes on my Phalaenopsis. So I'm going to have quite a few things to show you in a couple of weeks to a month when they start to bloom. So I'll definitely bring you in and show you that. My Saiku Marguerite is blooming. It's not as big of a show as last year, but she really needed to take a break. Last year she kind of outdid herself, and it really exhausted the plant, I feel like. So I'm kind of glad that this year it's not that much of a show, but I do love these blooms. They're so pretty, and they are so delicate, and they smell so nice. That vanilla smell is really pretty. My Vanda is putting out another spike. If you can see it up there, sorry, I think that might be blurry. And I've counted 6 buds on her so far. My Shari babies are all either in full bloom or just starting to go over. You can see that one starting to go over. And it's fairly humid in this room during the day. So when you walk in, you get kind of smacked in the face with that chocolate smell, which isn't a bad thing. My wildcat is still going strong. This is the 3rd spike on one bulb, which I didn't know was really possible, but apparently it is. And each of the spikes was very generous. So I was really surprised at what she did for me this year. Several of my Latoria types are in spike. So my Nora Takanaga, my Royal Chip. My Royal Chip, they're just tiny little nubs, so there's not much really to show you yet. But Nora Takanaga took a very short break, and now she's back in bloom again. Same thing with my microchip. I don't think my microchip ever actually stopped blooming. I think there were probably 1 or 2 spikes left on it when it started to put out more spikes. So she's an overachiever too. My Charles Finch Itsumi is in bloom. She skipped blooming on her last set of new growths, which I wasn't happy about because it's one of my favorite blooms. And, but she finally decided to bloom, so we're happy about that. Really love these blooms. I love the spots and the spider-like growth pattern of these. My Falcata is starting to go out of bloom, but she's got more spikes coming, so I'm excited about that because I really do enjoy those flowers. When I first started growing, people were posting theirs, and I was like, you know, not that impressed. But now that I have one, I understand the hype. They're pretty cool plants. I'm trying to think. I have several of my Tolumnias are actually either in bloom or spike, which is really weird. Exciting, but weird, because I struggled to get them to bloom, and now all of a sudden I have 3 in spike. Don't know what I'm doing wrong, but they're liking it. So this one's really cute. I think I might have actually started to bloom the last video I showed you, so she's been in bloom for a while. But the back of them is actually a really pretty pink. Almost more pretty than the front, which I find interesting. This is the first time bloom for her. If you hear something whining, it's my Yorkie. She doesn't like to be separated from me ever since her siblings passed away, so I'm sorry if you hear her. But if I let her in, she would just be whining at my feet, and she'd be really annoying for the video. So it's my yellow bird. It's also in spike, if you can see on the newest growth there. I have a spike. I have a sheath on my Volcano Queen, and then I also have a spike coming on my Mary's Glory. Mary's Glory doesn't do sheaths. She just does a spike. So, my Twinkle is in spike. My Popcorn is on her 3rd spike. She's again another overachiever. 3rd spike this year, so that's pretty cool. It looks like it's going to be pretty extensive too. It's got quite a bit of buds on there. And then my other 2 Tolumnias in spike are right here. I don't have the tags for any of them in the vases, so I can't even tell you. I got so frustrated with my Tolumnias at one point that I kind of just took all their tags and just kind of threw them in a bag and put them away, because I couldn't get them to bloom and they were just really frustrating me. And I was trying so many different things that trying to keep track of what plant goes with what tag was just not possible. So I gave up. And now they're spiking and I have no idea which ones are spiking. So my Schilleriana is also in spike. So we'll see. I think she's a little off. I think she bloomed a little earlier last year. We have this beauty in spike. She's in full bloom now. She has been for a while. And I really, really enjoy those colors. It's got like all shades of red and orange and yellow. No fragrance, but she's pretty. I also have this orchid. Sorry, I know that went really blurry for a second. I also have this orchid in spike again. This is the second spike on the same bulb. And this is my Castle is a Hilo Bay. It's a Wilsonara. I love Wilsonaras. I really enjoy the shape of their blooms, so I'm looking forward to that spike. My Vanda's doing, not my Vanda, my Vanilla is doing really well. She just keeps growing and growing and growing. So I kind of gave her something to climb and she's taking advantage of it. And that new growth that she got that started here, you can see one of the leaves that got another secondary vine off of it, and it's doing really good. It goes all the way up to there, so she appears happy. Several people asked about my Maxillaria tenuifolia. She's back there getting as much light as possible. Last year I kind of kept the watering to a minimum and the light levels to a maximum, and she finally bloomed for me. So I'm gonna try that again this winter and see if we can't get her to bloom again, because that coconut fragrance is really nice. I know some people don't like coconut, but I'm not one of them. I love coconut, so to me that's really good. Again, I have a lot of Phalaenopsis in spike, so I'll share that with you. This Phalaenopsis is in spike, and I'm surprised she's even still alive. This is my Violacea cross that I thought I was losing, and this leaf over here was getting pretty yellow, so I decided to take it off and kind of explore her stem a little bit. And as you can see, it looks like she was dangerously close to stem rot. It looks like she has semi-recovered, so I'm hoping she's going to be okay. It's not wet. It looks pretty good. It's not progressing, so I'm hoping she's going to be okay. She is spiking for me, so that's interesting. And she's getting another leaf. So, and she's getting roots, which is typical of my Phalaenopsis. They like to do many things all at once. This thing that everyone's very interested in, myself included, if you don't know, this is a spike that I cut off of a mini phal that wasn't doing well. And I don't typically cut off spikes, but I did in this case. And it was still in bloom, so I stuck it in a little thing of water and decided to let it just continue to, you know, have its blooms and whatever. Blooms all fell off, and something looked like it was happening to the tip of the spike, so I kind of just left it there, and it developed a keiki. After being cut off of the mother plant, it developed a keiki. And now it's doing something else. I don't know what this is doing. I don't know if it's developing more flowers or another keiki, but clearly it has no plans on dying at this point, which is crazy because, like I said, it's been disconnected from the mother plant for months now. I actually have to go back and look and see when I cut it off because it's been a really long time. So, you know, I always said that there's a lot of energy potential in spikes, and I think this is kind of proving that point. The fact that a keiki and now something else is developing completely separate from the mother plant shows the potential of those spikes. And then over here, my pendulum put out a really good growth this year, but I don't know if it's gonna bloom. This time last year, it kind of already looked like it had little nubs, and I don't see any nubs, but it didn't go deciduous yet. So I don't know. I got it from a totally different environment last year, and so I think maybe it's just finally catching up to its new environment, which is cold New York. And so I think it might be, you know, it may not bloom the same time this year that it did last year, or it may not bloom at all. We'll have to see. She decides, I don't. My Victoria Regina, she finished her new growth. There's her terminal leaf. But I'm not winter resting her yet because she decided to put on another growth. So I'm going to continue to give her low levels of feed. My winter rest is different than other people's. Typically other people, when they winter rest, or I can't speak for other people, but a lot of people, when they winter rest, they slow down their feed and water. Some people don't even water their dendrobiums or water it very infrequently. throughout the winter, depending on where they live and what their environment is. I water my dendrobiums every week, but when it's winter time and they're not growing, they get no feed, and the water does not stay in the glass. So typically in the summer, spring, fall, they have a little bit of a reservoir. In the winter, I give them plain water with no feed in it for about an hour, and then I drain the water off and they sit dry for the week, and then they get watered again. So I don't completely cut the water out, I just cut the food out. That's my winter resting for my dendrobiums, and many of them flower, so only a few of them haven't. And those are mostly my nobile types. For some reason, yeah, they haven't bloomed for me yet, but it might just be because they're too young. I don't know. We'll see. My Paphiopedilums are doing really good, which I'm kind of surprised about because A, I've been very neglectful of my orchids lately, and they've gotten a little more dry than perhaps they should have. But B, I really didn't think water culture was going to be a good method for Paphiopedilums because of their water requirements. They need dampness, but not drowning. And that's a hard level to reach in water culture, especially when it's not so much dampness as it is humidity that the roots need. Like, they need a lot of moisture, but not like wringing wet. So as many of you know, I do the glass beads with the microfiber kind of woven through them to give a little extra humidity, and they're doing really, really well. This is my Paphiopedilum Warden, and her root system's doing really good, and she keeps putting out leaves. She does have something in there that I think is either another leaf or possibly even a spike. I'm not sure yet, but my other one is spiking, which I am shocked and really kind of surprised in a good way. Yeah, so we're gonna have blooms on this. This is Paphiopedilum American Beauty. So I say we're gonna have blooms, but that's if I don't mess it up. So we'll see. So far so good. She's doing really well. When this was in the apex, I thought it was a bloom because it was slightly thicker than a leaf, and that's kind of what I see going on in the apex of this one. So I'm hoping there's also going to be a spike, but you know, I mean, I didn't expect this spike, so even if I just get the spike from the one, I'll be happy about that. Yeah, so that's pretty much what's going on. I hope you guys have all been doing well. I really appreciate you guys sticking with me through what my life throws at me. I know that I post and then I disappear, and then I post and then I disappear, and it's not that I don't want to post, it's just life kind of sucks sometimes, and sometimes it's more than I can take, and I kind of gotta just take a little break. And unfortunately, those breaks have been more frequent lately because the past year to 18 months has been really hard on me. I lost 2 cats, 2 dogs, and both my grandmothers in the past 18 months, so it's been rough. But I do think about you guys often, and when I'm in here watering my plants, I do want to post. It's just sometimes I don't have the mental capacity to do it. So thanks so much for sticking by me. Thanks so much for sending me your words of sympathy. They really do mean a lot to me. And I hope you guys are all having a great day, and I will talk to you all next time.